For words that say more than an entire press tour ever could. Is it happening? I hope so. God. No composure. No careful publicist-approved phrasing. Just raw, unguarded desperation, caught on camera. From a woman who is supposedly one of the most in-demand actresses in Hollywood. Sit with how strange that reaction actually is. This isn't someone asked about a passion project she's spent years developing. This is Blake Lively, married to the man who controls the entire Deadpool franchise, visibly holding her breath over whether she gets handed a role inside her own husband's multi-billion-dollar empire. That's not the reaction of a woman confident in her own standing in this industry. That's the reaction of someone who knows exactly how much she needs this to go through, and how little control she actually has over whether it does. So here's the question driving this entire video. If Blake Lively has to hope this hard for a role her own husband is reportedly the one pushing behind the scenes, what does that tell you about how shaky her position in this industry has actually become?
Lady Deadpool, Blake, is it happening?
Hope so, God.
And, my husband and I, got married, Deadpool was made, and then they were looking for a lady pool, so,
How can you get it out?
Break
Hollywood
that
is
opening
correct.
line down piece by piece because every word in it matters. Is it happening? Is a question asked by someone who doesn't actually know the answer, which already tells you Blake isn't the one calling the shots here. Whatever Ryan is allegedly doing behind closed doors. I hope so is the language of someone bargaining for an outcome, not confirming one. And God isn't a throwaway exclamation. It's the sound of someone who understands exactly how much is riding on this landing the right way. Now hold that against everything supposedly happening around her career at the exact same time. Reports suggest Blake has been in a serious cooling-off period since the fallout from It Ends With Us, with major studios and brands reportedly growing hesitant to attach their names to hers for upcoming projects. That's not a minor rough patch. That's the kind of industry chill that can quietly end a career trajectory if it isn't reversed. And if that's the backdrop, her reaction to the ladypool question stops looking like simple excitement and starts looking like something closer to relief at the possibility of a lifeline. Push this further. A woman with a genuinely secure position in this industry doesn't answer a casting question with, "I hope so, God." She answers with confidence, with a joke, with the practiced ease of someone who knows her value isn't in question. The fact that Blake's actual response was this unguarded, this hopeful, this close to pleading, tells you she knows precisely how precarious her standing has become, and how much this one role might matter to fixing it. Compare this to how she used to talk about her own career, back when the offers came easily and the brand deals lined up without controversy trailing behind them. There was a version of Blake Lively who discussed her projects with the calm certainty of someone who never had to wonder whether the next opportunity was coming. That version is nowhere in this clip. What's left instead is someone visibly bracing for disappointment, hoping out loud because she can no longer simply expect. And think about what it means that the person allegedly pushing hardest for this role isn't her own team, her own representation, her own leverage in the industry, it's her husband. If Ryan Reynolds is the one reportedly lobbying Marvel executives on her behalf, that's not Blake Lively getting cast on her own merit and standing. That's Blake Lively depending entirely on her husband's box office leverage to open a door the industry itself doesn't seem eager to open for her right now. That's not a power couple operating as equals. That's one half of a marriage propping up the other, in public, in front of the entire industry watching to see if it works. Here's the part that should sting the most. Even with all of Ryan's reported influence, the D23 stunts, the Hall H walk-ons, the relentless public marketing pressure that's worked for him and Hugh Jackman before, insiders reportedly say the specific push for Blake has hit resistance in a way his other maneuvers never did. Which means even Ryan Reynolds' considerable leverage might not be enough this time. If that's true, I hope so God wasn't just hopeful. It was an admission that she knows this might not actually happen no matter how hard her husband pushes for it. Remember exactly how audacious those previous wins actually were. Reynolds walked straight into Hall H during a major convention presentation, while executives insisted casting rosters were locked down, and got away with it. He and Jackman staged an entire viral hostage video at D23, turning behind the scenes lobbying into public comedy that reportedly forced Marvel's hand on securing his own spot in Doomsday. That strategy worked because it was Reynolds fighting for Reynolds, his own seat, his own leverage, his own risk. reportedly trying to repeat that exact formula on someone else's behalf, even his own wife's, runs into an entirely different wall, because insiders say casting directors are now placing far more weight on stability and unblemished audience appeal for major roles, especially amid a fragile, transitional era for the franchise. Blake, coming off the "it ends with us" backlash, is close to the opposite of unblemished right now, which means the very stunts that worked for Reynolds might be the exact reason executives are getting more cautious, not less, about handing his wife a permanent seat at the table. And consider what it means for a marriage when one partner's entire professional future depends on the other successfully lobbying executives who reportedly don't want to say yes. That's not a small strain to carry quietly. Every conversation Ryan has with Marvel about this becomes, in effect, a referendum on whether he can actually deliver for his own wife, in an industry where his currency has always been his ability to get exactly what he wants. If he fails here, it isn't just Blake who takes the hit. It's the entire myth of Ryan Reynolds as the guy who always finds a way. To understand exactly how much is riding on this, look at where Deadpool actually came from in the first place. When Deadpool and Wolverine broke box office records worldwide, proving that R-rated, self-aware superhero chaos could still dominate globally, Blake got her first real taste of this world. A voice cameo as the variant Deadpool, her face hidden behind the mask the entire time. Ryan himself talked about it publicly, joking about how natural it felt including his wife in what he called the chaotic family affair of the production, praising her comedic timing, calling the whole thing a genuinely fun experience for both of them. But there's a massive difference between a fun, uncredited voice cameo and fighting for a permanent, unmasked, live-action fixture in the biggest superhero franchise on the planet. That's exactly where this reportedly hit resistance. Insiders suggest Ryan has been lobbying hard to turn that one-off cameo into a recurring presence, hoping to anchor Blake into future ensemble projects as the multiverse expands. And that's where Robert Downey Jr. and the franchise's original architects reportedly draw the line. As the man who kicked off this entire multi-billion-dollar universe back in 2008, RDJ commands a level of creative trust from Kevin Feige and Disney executives that Reynolds, for all his box office success, simply doesn't have. Reynolds can walk into Hall H uninvited. He can stage a viral hostage video with Hugh Jackman that forces Marvel's hand on his own casting.
Blake Lively just made a post about Hayden Panettiere, and people are not happy. He's asking everybody to be kind? Huh, interesting. Or when, Ryan mocked him with "nice pool." That was so kind, yeah.
Now bring in the second clip. And notice how quickly the tone shifts from hopeful to hypocritical. Blake posts something asking people to be kind, specifically in reference to Hayden Panettiere. And the reaction isn't warmth, it's suspicion. Interesting, someone notes, before pointing directly at the reason why. When Ryan mocked him with "nice pool." That was so kind. Unpack how damning that juxtaposition actually is. Blake is publicly positioning herself as an advocate for compassion, for giving people grace, for being kind to someone going through a hard time. And in the very same breath, someone points out that her own husband mocked another public figure using the exact same pool joke format Deadpool herself is built on. Weaponized instead of celebrated. That's not accidental irony. That's a direct contradiction playing out in public on the same platform within the same conversation. Push this angle hard because it's not really about one joke. It's about what this reveals regarding the actual values running underneath the Reynolds Lively brand. Publicly, they've spent years selling themselves as the funny, self-aware, good-natured couple who punch up, not down, who make jokes at their own expense as often as anyone else's. But if Ryan is allegedly willing to mock someone with the exact same wordplay his wife's own advocacy is supposedly built on, that suggests the kindness is selective, deployed when it's convenient, withheld when a punchline is more useful. Notice, too, how casually the mockery gets treated compared to how seriously the advocacy is presented. Blake's post is framed with weight, a call for compassion during someone's hard time. Ryan's joke is framed as just banter, just Ryan being Ryan, the exact same defense that's followed him through years of similar jokes at other people's expense. That double standard, sincerity for her, immunity for him, is baked so deeply into their public brand that most people don't even notice it happening anymore. And think about the timing of these two clips sitting next to each other. In one breath, Blake is desperately hoping for a role that would put her back in the good graces of an industry that's reportedly cooled on her. In the next, she's asking the public for the exact kind of grace and kindness that her own husband apparently doesn't extend to others when it's not strategically convenient for him. That's not a coincidence of editing. That's a pattern. Ask for compassion when you need it, withhold it when you don't. Here's the uncomfortable question this segment leaves you with. If Blake Lively genuinely believes in the kindness she's publicly asking for, why hasn't she said a single word about her own husband's mockery of someone else using that exact same joke? Silence in a moment like that isn't neutral. It's a choice, and it's one that undercuts the very message she just tried to put out into the world. Think about how this looks from the outside to the very audience Blake is trying to win back over. She's not just failing to correct her husband, she's staying quiet while the internet does the math out loud, connecting her plea for kindness directly to his cruelty, and she still hasn't addressed it. In a moment where she desperately needs to be seen as sympathetic, as someone worth rooting for again after the "it ends with us" backlash, choosing silence over accountability is exactly the kind of decision that keeps the cooling off period going instead of ending it. Bring both moments back together. A woman visibly desperate for a role she needs her husband to fight for on her behalf, because her own standing in the industry has reportedly cooled to the point where she can't get there on her own merit. And in the very next breath, that same woman asking the public for a kindness her own household doesn't seem to consistently practice. So ask yourself the question this video keeps circling. Is Blake Lively's Ladypool push really about creative opportunity? Or is it a last desperate attempt to stay relevant in an industry that's quietly moving on without her, propped up entirely by a husband who can't even keep his own jokes consistent with the kindness she's publicly asking everyone else to show? Drop your take in the comments, like the video if these two clips changed how you're reading this whole situation, and subscribe so you don't miss it when Marvel finally decides whether Ladypool actually happens.